Several countries in the world have had the most brutal dictator leaders in history. Here are the 7 most cruel dictators in the world. The first was Adolf Hitler. Hitler took control of Germany in 1930. Then, at the end of 1941, the German Third Reich Empire included almost every country in Europe and parts of North Africa. During his reign, he hatched a plan to create a master race by eliminating Jews, Slavs, Gypsies, homosexuals, and political opponents. Hitler also sent them to concentration camps and tortured to death. According to reports, he killed 11 million people, including 6 million Jews. On April 30, 1945, Hitler decided to end his life after finding himself a fugitive from the Soviet Union's Red Army. Second, Joseph Stalin. Stalin was born in Georgia in 1878. He became the #1 person in the Soviet Union to replace Lenin, who died in 1924. He brutally suppressed his political enemies and people he suspected of being opponents. The number of victims who died for Stalin's political ambitions varies. However, based on records, around 14 to 20 million people died in labor camps known as the Great Purge or executions in the 1930s. Apart from that, Stalin also deported and exiled millions of people. The third Pol Pot, Khmer Rouge leader and Cambodian dictator Pol Pot, was directly responsible for one of the most severe genocides in modern history. For 4 years he held power in Cambodia. About 1 million people died from starvation, imprisonment, forced labor, and murder. His power did not last long. In 1979 the government fell to Vietnam, but together with his Khmer Rouge followers, he continued to operate in rural Thailand. Fourth, Idi Amin. Amin became Uganda's 3rd president. He must be responsible for around 250,000 deaths due to terror during his reign. This terror includes torture, extrajudicial executions, corruption, and ethnic persecution. In 1979, Uganda was in turmoil. When Tanzanian troops attacked, Amin then fled. He sought refuge in Libya and then Saudi Arabia. Amin then died in 2003. Fifth, Francisco Franco. Franco held control of Spain from 1939 to 1975. At that time, he emerged as the victor of the Spanish Civil War. His reign was marked by severe repression and systematic repression of dissidents who were sent to concentration camps. They were sentenced to prison terms, which often included forced labor or execution. Franco's regime became more liberal in the 1960s and 1970s, but Spain became a democratic nation after its demise. Sixth, Saddam Hussein. Saddam led Iraq in 1979 and is estimated to be responsible for around 500,000 to 1 million deaths. Of that number, Kurds account for around 70,000 to 300,000 people. Hussein's reign collapsed after the US and UK-led coalition invaded Iraq in 2003. Then in 2006, he was found guilty of 148 deaths of Shiites in the early 1980s and sentenced to death. Hussein was then executed by hanging on December 30, 2006. The last one is Bloody Mary I, the only child of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. Mary I became Queen of England in 1553. After reigning, she returned to the Catholic faith, where previous rulers had championed Protestantism as the main religion. Mary I married Philip II of Spain, who was also a Catholic. In the following years, hundreds of Protestants were burned at the stake, and because of this act she earned the nickname Bloody Mary.